Ooh, don't even get me going. Back on Sports 225, visiting with Karl Benson, the commissioner of the Sun Belt Conference, who came here a year ago, and it's a different world. I moved to Baton Rouge 28 years ago. I was in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. My personal biography here, but in the summer of 1984, I interviewed for 2 jobs. One was to cover the Green Bay Packers for the Press-Gazette in Green Bay. The other one was to go to work for the Advocate in Baton Rouge. And I thought for sure I was getting the Green Bay job, was all ready to go, and didn't get it. And then I got offered the job in Baton Rouge, and I said, I'll go down there for a year or 2. And there were parts of it that were just remarkably foreign to me, and to this day probably still are. When you come to a place like New Orleans, where there's so many things going on, I mean, it's just never ending. And there's that laissez-faire attitude. There must have been a couple of times when you said, whoa.
Being at the WAC, I had the University of Hawaii in the WAC for 18 years, and I'd go to Hawaii 2 or 3 times, and specifically Honolulu. And I always referred to Honolulu as a multicultural, but it had its own laid-back type of culture and atmosphere and environment. And I've visited New Orleans many a times over the last 20 years, but to live in that city versus just travel in and out, you really do see that culture, and it's great culture, and there's great history and great tradition, and I haven't had a lot of time this year to really become connected and part of it, but I like it. I like it a lot.
Sunbelt, what's the biggest challenge you have in football right now?
Well, right now we've got the membership issues that we're getting through, and we have some great young programs and some great young coaches in the conference, and we've got teams coming back next year. It's to maintain probably the success we had this last year. Sunbelt's only a 11-year-old football conference,
and you guys have done real well in bowl games, haven't you?
And this past year was our best year ever in terms of non-conference play, and then had 4 teams in the bowls, and I think it's a matter of being able to just keep the momentum going. Mark Hudspeth at UL, I think, just kind of personifies the type of young coaches and good solid coaches that we have. Facilities are continuing to grow. UL just announced a major capital project to infuse facilities in Lafayette, and University of Louisiana Monroe had a great season. They beat Arkansas. They had Auburn on the ropes. They had Baylor on the ropes, and Todd Berry up at ULM has done a fantastic job up there. So we've got some momentum going, and hopefully the 2013 season, which is going to be a transition year again in terms of schools coming in and those going out. But I'm very optimistic about the future of the Sun Belt, and if you look on my Twitter page, you'll see a picture of me in a bright yellow optic yellow shirt with the caption that the future is bright for the Sun Belt Conference. So that's been my message here for the last year.
And what, pray tell, is your Twitter handle?
KB Commish.
KB Commish. Yeah. That would be with an SH?
Yes.
Okay. KB Commish, I love it. Now in basketball, which I'm most fond of in college sports, it's a league with great coaches coming and going. But, of course, Johnny Jones, who's at LSU now, was at North Texas. North Texas leaving the league, but nonetheless, you got our man John Brady up at Arkansas State. One of my personal favorites, Kermit Davis Jr. at Middle Tennessee, among others. I mean, it's a basketball coach-heavy league. There's some guys, like Bob Marlin over at UL, and I mean, I could go on and on. Guys who are really, really good basketball coaches.
And historically, the Sun Belt's been a basketball league before football came in, and we need to restore kind of the history and tradition of the Sun Belt. And on the basketball side, we need to get to a point where we have multiple teams in the NCAA tournament. We had 2 teams, this year with Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee, and we need to get teams in the tournament and then win games to kind of bring the Sun Belt basketball back into that that top 10, top 12 conferences that really kind of set themselves apart from the other 20 conferences. And so that's one of our biggest challenges as well.
Yeah, it's so visible. I mean, March Madness is so key for conference visibility and just, everything. I mean, I thought for sure Middle Tennessee with the year they had, I was glad they got the at-large, but then they got that play-in game, or the first round, if you will. And, it's tough. But I know you got to be rooting hard for a team there to You know, that's the so-called mid-major, get to the round of 16 run that you just so desperately need, right?
Absolutely. And Western Kentucky plays Kansas, down into a 3-minute game, and so I mean we performed well. I think Middle Tennessee, got a tough draw playing St. Mary's in that play-in game or that first round game. But again, I think that we've got the foundation at a lot of programs. We've got some new facilities. Troy just remarkable new basketball arena at Troy, and so I think that there's
Troy,
momentum that can spill over.
Troy's been a really good basketball program for a long time. It's a good hoops league. All right, before we go to this next break, your thoughts about the 68 teams, the 4 they have playoff, as a former NCAA committee guy?
Well, I was opposed to going to the play-in game when we added the actually when the Mountain West became a conference and we went from 64 to 65 teams in the NCAA tournament, and now we're on the verge again. They're going to have to tweak something with the Big East splitting off into two conferences. There's now going to be 32 conferences, so there will be 32 automatics, and my guess is it will stay at that 68 level. But I'm a purist. If we could turn the clock back and go back to just the straight 64, I think it would enhance the tournament.
I wouldn't complain. Karl Benson is with me. He's the commissioner of the Sun Belt Conference.